What was that?
I just thought I would get a sweet little softback copy. Paperback copy as well.
Those books. Oh, it's your fault. Sorry.
Don't shove me.
Okay, I'm kind of used to the heat. But put on some thicker gloves if you're... No, do you know what? Colourway, and then... Colourway? It's not a colourway, is it? But if I say colourway, I just mean dye colour. It's just... I'm going to put on a thicker glove because it is quite hot then. Oh, wrong glove. Imagine, I say imagine a sugarcane field. You probably don't ever see that, but it's like...
I can't do it. What did you do? Right.
1, 2. Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring episode 2 of the Yarny Book Club.
Yes.
It was the 5th of January 2024. Can you believe it? Oh yes, it's the year of Jack Bauer.
It is.
It was the 5th of January this year that Kay put out her very first episode of a brand new series, the Yarny Book Club. And it's been so much fun seeing quite a few of you getting hold of the book.
Yep.
And having a read.
Yes.
That's really cool. And Then There Were None, of course, was the first book.
Lovely bit of Agatha Christie. Can't beat her, can you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the episode, if you missed it, Kay then dyed up a just amazing colourway. 2 colourways, actually. Miss
Two
Havisham.
colourways. I did a complimentary colour, which I called Miss Havisham. And then we did And Then There Were None colourway, which was a gorgeous sort of mix of blues and then a sort of darker grey on top. It's lovely.
And it's so exciting because today the series is back. So we're going to get to see that And Then There Were None all knitted up and then with its contrast above.
Yeah.
So it's all in like a lovely Miss Havisham. I can't say it. Miss Havisham.
Miss Havisham sandwich.
I sound like Sean Connery.
Oh, you do. Oh, lovely Sean.
The best cameo in history goes to Sean Connery as Richard the Lionheart in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
It does.
I bet you in America, when he came on screen, I bet you people stood up and applauded.
Bet they did.
I know I wanted to.
Yeah. I don't remember if I saw that in the cinema.
I did.
I can't remember. Too long ago.
I can remember sitting there. I can remember seeing the start of that film and thinking, this is going to be good.
This is going to be good.
And within no time at all, I'd bought the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I remember...
We listen to it often, actually.
We do.
Yeah.
I remember some friends of ours came round, and it was John and Mike, who I mentioned. They're like childhood friends of they were friends of my parents, and just a lovely couple of guys.
Yeah.
And they came round, and Mike's like a big-time musician, and he said, "What's this I'm listening to? It's amazing."
Yeah. I
said, "It's the soundtrack to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves by Michael Kamen."
Yeah.
Just brilliant.
Brilliant.
So, yes, today Kay's back with a brand new book.
Yes.
So, reading corner review, that's going to be lovely.
Yep.
But then also dyeing up the lovely book-inspired yarn.
Yes, and it's very different.
Yes.
Very, very different colourway and dyeing method to last time.
Yes.
So that's fun. And I've knit it into the cowl, so I'll show you that as well.
Now, completely remiss of us not to mention, thank you all so much for your enjoyment and love of Kay's Classic Bakes and our last episode of the video show. Clearly, you guys really enjoyed that. Let me tell you, though, you're not enjoying Kay's Classic Bakes anywhere near as much as I am, because I'm the one who gets to try it all.
Yes.
And to say I'm excited about the next episode.
The next one is going to be... it's absolutely one of Dan's favourite things ever.
And what I realised, and we'll talk more about this later on the show when we talk about what's coming up, but it's coming out at the most perfect time.
It is.
You'd realise
Very seasonal.
Very seasonal.
Yes.
Beyond exciting.
Yes.
And it's a callback to your first ever baking segment.
Is it really? Oh, yes.
Amazing. I mean, that really is amazing.
Yeah, there is a link. Yeah.
So cool. Now, this year, it's going to be a big year for us. Because our daughter, Bryony, is getting old.
Yes.
And she's right at the point where it's time for her to go off to university. And
in September.
Yes, much excitement and nerves and whatever about applying to universities and all sorts. And anyway, applications go out, and she's got accepted to the one she wants to go to.
She has.
And best of all, they've even slightly lowered the entrance requirements, which shows they really want her on the course.
She got...
I said to Kay this morning, I know what it was, because I read her personal statement.
Yeah.
She had to write a personal statement. She's been writing it for a long
It's
time.
taken a long time to put this application together.
Lots of support from amazing teachers at her school. And I read a personal statement, and it really was great, because it really did... I think what's so important about a personal statement on a university application, but any personal statement, is it needs to be a real reflection of who you are. And that's what it was.
It was. She's doing creative writing at university, and her personal statement was basically just raving on and on and on about how much she loves books and what they mean to her and how important they are in the world.
Yeah.
And... you know, it was a lovely thing to read.
Yeah.
So clearly, the university agree with her. And
what was so nice, and it was quite emotional, her getting that offers from where she wants to go.
Yeah, she got offers from other universities as well.
What's so nice from our point of view is seeing her reaction when she got the offers from where she wants to go.
She was so thrilled,
And as parents, then you can just feel like totally calm with the situation and know she's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and it's a place that she knows really well, that we know really well. We're really comfortable with her going there. And
it's going to be, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, she's got to do her A-levels and she's got to get the grades, but... we're just one step away from
it's like
from that happening.
Hurdle number 1 is cleared.
Yeah, I mean, this was the biggest hurdle, really, getting the offer.
Well, yeah, because if you don't get the offer, it doesn't matter what comes after.
No, and she got the offers from 3 other universities first.
Yeah.
And we were like, right,
you're like on tenterhooks because you don't really want those.
No, she didn't really want those.
As much as it's nice. Thanks very much.
It was encouraging, because those offers came back really quick, didn't they? But then she got the one that she wanted yesterday, and she texted us from school with a screenshot of the email that she'd got.
Amazingly, and this actually brings me on to the next thing I'm going to talk about in a second. Amazingly, she took a video of her screen.
She did.
Accessing...
How did she do that?
Well, look, that segues us beautifully into our next segment, because if you've got a child that is about to go to university, it does start to dawn on you that you're probably more experienced in life, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You've seen lots of summers and winters. And the other thing that really brought it home to me, that we've seen many summers and many winters, is Kay, for the first time ever in today's episode, she actually took some video, which you're going to be seeing.
I did.
And that's very exciting.
All 20 seconds of it.
All 20 seconds. Yeah. Sadly...
You've cut it, haven't you?
No, I haven't cut it.
I filmed it the wrong way, didn't I?
You didn't realise, but the camera was in the wrong orientation. You know when you get your phone, Co's filming with her phone, grab some footage, and you've got to sort of shake it sometimes to get it to change.
To go the other way.
So you'd filmed it in portrait, but it's fine, I could flip it. Filming was perfect. What made me laugh, and also what made me feel whole, to know that it's not just me, is as I'm going through her videos, I happen to find an 8-second time lapse from the Christmas before last of Kay's feet in the garden. So I know what happened. I know exactly what happened. She got her phone out, getting ready to take a picture of the wreath that you made.
Ah, right.
For
right.
Handmade Christmas 2022. So you grabbed your phone out of your pocket, you opened the camera, and in the process of doing that,
I've somehow managed to...
You've knocked the time lapse.
Right. I don't even know how to do that, so I don't know how I did it.
She's knocked the time-lapse button and started to take a time-lapse of her feet. Of her feet.
That's nice, isn't it?
8 seconds later, she realised, turned it off, took a picture, never thought anything more about it.
No.
Today comes around, well, yesterday. The reason why I felt whole was, I don't know about you, I don't know actually if it's the same on Android phones, but on Apple, they've decided that if you want to take a screenshot, that it's the
same 2 buttons
either side.
Yeah, that you turn the phone off with, isn't it? No,
you only have to push the one on the left-hand side to turn the phone off with.
Oh, right, okay.
If you want to shut the screen down,
I'm going to say to turn the phone off, you have to do that.
You have to hold both.
And that's when I normally take a screenshot of my...
When I take a screenshot,
home thing.
How often, if you have an Apple phone, I'd love to know, do you constantly take screenshots of your screen?
I did it just yesterday. Maybe people don't experience this because they don't ever turn their phones off. That could be one thing.
Right.
You know, we all turn our phones off every day. You know, we don't have phones on overnight or anything.
It's not just that though. I do it all the time when I'm just shutting the screen down. Because how do you shut the screen down without touching the other side? Because it's exactly the other side, and you have to get the purchase on the button to turn it. It's like but. I'm guessing perhaps it's just an older person thing. Although no, I don't think it is.
First world problems.
Because our daughter Bryony said that she
does it as well.
So maybe
it's not us. Maybe it's not an age thing. Let's think it's not.
Definitely. Hey, I must just mention, we watched a really great film. It was called The Family Plan, and it starred Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
And wasn't it superb?
It was absolutely brilliant.
It was on Apple TV. It was
an Apple film.
Yeah, and it was just, it felt slightly old-fashioned in a way, because there was lots of, and now when I say old-fashioned, I'm talking references back to National Lampoons.
Yeah, yes there were, yeah.
There was things going on in it that made you think of National Lampoons.
It was really funny. And the situation itself was not funny at all.
No.
It was very serious, dangerous situation, but there was loads of humour in it, you know, the way that it was filmed.
It was just great. It was
a brilliant film, just really entertaining. Yeah. So it's a great sort of... I think it is, even though the theme... When I say family film, I would say it's for older kids.
Yeah, probably 15 onwards.
Yeah. Not young kids, definitely not. But, you know, if you've got teenagers in the house and you fancy a good film, really good.
It was great. It was great. Really sort of fun and exciting thing to watch at the start of the year. Because we say this quite often, don't we? How often do you put on a film and it's either sort of gritty and grimy and horrible and life's hard enough, I don't need to watch it on in a film as well. But then even more, too dark.
Too dark. Physically to look at, too dark. I turn them off. I can't be doing with this.
Enough of this, because we have lots of lovely projects to show you. We do. So without further ado, I shall say, Kate Jones, what's on your needles?
So my first thing is a recast on. Because, do you remember, I started a new reading shawl, my reading shawl, which is one of my patterns, one of my designs, and it was a scrappy one. And I started it and I didn't quite like what I was doing with it, so I started it again. Well, I've started it again. And this time, this is it. What I was doing, it is still a scrappy shawl, but what I was doing last time, if you might remember, is I'd got a bag full of leftovers and I just decided I was just going to put my hand in and whatever I pulled out, that's what I had to use. Well, that just did not work for me. Because the kind of controlling, got to choose my colours, got to be right sort of brain couldn't handle that at all. And I hadn't worked on it for a few weeks. And I thought, why have I not been working on this? And then I realised it was because of that. So I said, you know what? I want to do a scrappy version. But the only way really that I'm going to enjoy it and want to work on it is if I choose the colours. I had done a little bit on that last one, so I just bound it off and I gave it to Bryony and she's tied it around the neck of one of her little soft toys, so that's gone to a good use. And I started again and I'm absolutely loving it. So what I decided to do this time is, so my reading shawl is a pattern that I put out last maybe November time, October, November, something like that. It uses fingering weight held double through the whole shawl, and in the actual pattern I used an advent calendar of yarns. I used an advent calendar from Pixie Yarns and I held 2 of the mini skeins together the whole way through. So there's 12 sections and it's interspersed by a contrast stripe. What I've done this time is all I'm doing is I'm taking the basic pattern, so that the, in terms of how it's constructed, but then I'm just ignoring all of the instructions about where to stripe, and I'm just working 2 yarns together until they run out, and then I'm choosing 2 more and carrying on. And the other thing I was doing last time was I was just changing yarns wherever they ran out, which meant that sometimes I'd get pearl bump crossovers of colour. I didn't like that. So now I'm just changing at the beginning of a row, and I'm loving it, absolutely loving it. So this is where I'm up to. Oh, and I just love the colours. I wanted it to be bright and fun.
I grew up doing a lot of sailing, and this totally reminds me of the sails that I used to see on holiday.
Yeah.
On really cool sort of big boats and things.
Yeah.
And it to me, it just screams sort of happy.
Yeah, happy colours, that's what I wanted. So I've gone for a mixture of some sort of pastels, like this one at the top is quite pastel-y, but then lots of brights. If you balance it with sort of stripes where it's sort of more pastel-y, I think that just offsets the brightness and also shows off all of those beautiful bright colours, because when it's all bright, your eye doesn't quite know where to go. But if you have like a rest, sort of like little rest areas, if you like, then your eye's drawn to the bright colours, and I think you appreciate it more. So I'm really, really loving it. So I'm not sure, it's difficult to say where I am in terms of how far through I am, because I'm not doing the stripe sequence. It's easy to tell when you're working from the actual pattern itself, because there's 12 sections, so you can say I'm on section 6 or whatever, and you'll know how far through you are. With this, I'm just going by stitch count, so I'll know it's finished when I've reached the stitch count that the pattern tells me that is the final stitch count before you put the picot edge on. But what I did do yesterday was I took my other reading shawl, one of them, I've done 2, haven't I? And I counted how many garter ridges I've got left to do. And then I've broken it down, because there is a deadline for this shawl, but it's a few months off. I've got quite a lot of time to knit it. But I thought, if I know in my head how much I've got to do every day comfortably, then I won't end up in a situation where I'm kind of rushing to finish it. And all I've got to do every day really is just 1 garter ridge, and it'll be done in plenty of time. So that's easy. It's just 2 rows a day. So it's not a problem. That'll take a bit more time as it gets bigger, but still it won't ever be a problem to just doing 2 rows a day. I'm probably doing more now, to be fair. So it'll probably be finished in plenty of time. But the 2 yarns I'm holding together at the moment for this kind of neutrally beigey sort of section are these 2. One of them, the whitish colour, is Dandelion and Dogwood. It was a mini from her Agatha Christie advent a couple of years ago. And then the other one, the brownish tone one, I believe that's one that I've dyed, but I can't remember exactly why. But held together, they look really nice. And I've been doing the same thing with the others. I've just been going into my bag, because I've got all of my... This is my big sweater bag that I made myself at Christmas with the cross stitch. This cross stitch is from Caterpillar Cross Stitch, but I changed some of the colours because I wanted a pink jumper. And in here, I've got all of these lovely leftovers. And when I'm looking for my next colour, so after this one... what I do is I sort of look at the colours that I've done, and then I think, which colour would look nice coming next? And I might choose a green, for example. So I'll then go into my bag and look and see what I've got that are greens. And for example, I've got this lovely bright leftover, but I might want to pair that with something a bit less bright. I mean, those 2 would look gorgeous together, but that would be very bright. I've got a more subdued green here, so I might then choose to pair this. This one is beautiful. This is one I dyed up. I might choose to pair that maybe with that one, look. And that process of choosing the leftovers to use next and deciding what colour is going to come next, that is most of the joy for me, to be honest. And that's where I was falling down with the other one, that I wasn't I couldn't make that decision for myself. I was just relying on randomness to do it, and that it just didn't work. Whereas this now I'm absolutely loving. So my favourite colour so far is this sort of neon peach here. I'm really into peach at the minute. You'll see from another one of my projects. I'm just really loving peach. So I love that neon peach, and I love the pink, and I love this aqua. I love all of them, to be honest. And then I started off up here with a pale sort of pink speckled. I think it was 2 pale pink sort of speckly colours, which is lovely. So yeah, just a great project for scraps because it uses quite a lot of yarn because you're holding it double and then it is a big shawl. So I can't remember. I mean, well, I know that I used a full advent calendar and I used pretty much all of it. So that is like 480 grams of yarn, isn't it? But then there was the contrast stripes as well. And I think I had 2 full skeins for that. I didn't use all of it. But it's a good amount of yarn, so it would use up a whole stack of your leftovers. If you wanted to knit yourself a big squishy shawl ready for more sort of autumnal weather, I suppose, by the time you get it done. But I use my reading shawl most mornings, just to wrap around myself with it being still quite cold at the moment. It's just lovely. And I think if you've also got a friend who loves to read, then I think it would be a really fantastic gift. My reading shawl, absolutely loving it. Dan Jones, what's on your needles?
Oh, it's spectacular, darling.
Oh, I get a darling. Hey, that's nice, isn't it?
No, I thought it sounded like... Oh, it made me think of Miranda.
Oh, but you do call me darling all the time.
I do. But the TV show.
It's very nice to get it on film now.
I loved Miranda, the TV show.
Oh, it was hilarious.
I mean, just all the cast was just great.
Yeah.
Because Stevie's cool.
Yeah.
Stevie. Yeah. I'm not going to stop you now. Yeah. But then, of course...
Her mum was the best.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah.
But
and her mum was in Downton Abbey.
Hodge.
Patricia Hodge.
That's it.
Yeah, she played Bertie's mum in Downton Abbey.
And she was, in effect, just playing the same character.
She kind of was. She sort of was. Yeah. She was.
Now, I mean, that is such a cool place. His home in Downton.
Alnwick.
Yeah.
Alnwick Castle. Yeah, we've been a few times.
Yeah, it is.
We've been inside as well. It's a beautiful place.
It's a really cool place, and I think it was sort of perfect. It was perfect for that. And actually, it was. What's so funny is, when you consider that Downton was filmed in the south, but set not far from here in Ripon.
Yeah.
Alnwick, which is just up the road from the pretend Downton, actually is just up the road from where Downton was set. It's just up the road from Ripon. Yeah. So it was sort of perfect. It was a perfect choice.
Yeah.
You've got to wonder, actually, if when they were getting ready to make Downton Abbey, did they go and look at Newby Hall? Or was it as simple as... we're making this in the south because that's where all the actors are. That's what it'll be cheaper for us.
Yeah, maybe so. Because if you don't know, Newby Hall is a big stately home, really close to Ripon, literally.
Which
2 or 3 miles down the road.
When you consider that Julian Fellows knows this area well because he went to school in Ampleforth, it's the whole reason why he set it around here. You have to wonder if his Downton was Newby.
Yeah, possibly. Possibly.
Because then he's constantly making references to other places that are actually here.
That are actual places near Ripon. Yeah.
It's just Downton, the house, which
is down
is
near
south of London.
Down near London somewhere, isn't it?
Couldn't be further from here. It's hilarious. Speaking of lovely homes and stately homes and all of those types of things, it is winter at Pemberley, that's it, isn't it?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's what I called it.
I do apologise. Oh, and it's just marvellous.
Oh, yes.
And I'm about to work it. I've just seen what I'm about to work into.
Oh, is it? I can't remember what it was. Can I look at the chart?
Yeah, I need to lie down. But that's what I'm after. I want the challenge stuff. It's literally just over the page.
Oh, yes. It's beautiful. I can't show you because it's a chart, but you'll see it as he knits it. It's lovely.
Think about a really complicated colour work chart, and that's what you've got. But forget about what's coming. Look at what's been. Oh, I mean...
Isn't it lovely?
That's like my favourite colourwork I think I've ever knitted.
Yeah, I remember charting out that ivy, and I did try to find some charts of it, of ivy, and I found a few, but I didn't quite find exactly
what you were looking for.
Yeah, so I got a chart, but then I tweaked it to what I wanted it actually to look like.
What's so lovely is, it's the movement from here to here, and that's why I like these cowls so much, because the contrast, seeing the contrast, it's like, suddenly one yarn is to the fore and then another one is, and then it's all like swapping around and just so much fun. It
looks lovely.
I'm so glad. I don't know with the whole colourwork technique. I don't know if you were I suppose it would be the case if you were constantly knitting this type of thing, your technique would stay more even. When you don't constantly knit it, I find that just it drops slightly, and inevitably you just end up. But I know after what happened with the other two that is going to even out a good amount.
A good amount, yes, it will, and it is a tricky chart to do because you've got big runs of the pale colour. So you have to catch your floats. But I think you've just caught them too many times on the bottom section. The top section looks better.
The other thing that I found is that if you catch your floats, so you're doing a round, if you keep catching your floats, my brain works in a sort of rhythmical fashion. So I'll catch my floats maybe every third or fourth stitch. And if you constantly do that, row after row, that's bad. Because that creates a sort of tension point because you've constantly caught it after 3 or 4 stitches or whatever. So as I've worked up it, I've started to really alternate more.
Yeah, but your floats are too tight. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I find though that the catching of them helps them not be so tight.
But that's the issue.
Well, that's the issue there. But if you look, this is not interesting viewing.
It's the minutiae, isn't it, of colourwork.
So I changed my technique from catching the floats to leaving longer floats, and I think that was a bad idea. I think that the right thing to do was to keep catching my floats like I always have done, but make it irregular so that each row you're not catching it on the third one every time. It might be the second one and the fifth one. It might be the fourth one and the sixth one, rather than always catching it in the same spot. It's a constant learning thing, and that's cool.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Is.
That's what makes knitting fun for me, is constantly sort of challenging yourself and trying to make yourself better, and also trying different things. Sometimes things will work, sometimes they won't work.
And you get another chance to do this at the other end.
Yeah, and if you go look at both of the other ones, the second time on all of them is great. So that tells you that what you should actually do is, before you start knitting it, you should do a test round of the hardest bit.
Yeah, but these cowls like this, I think, are a great practice piece, aren't they?
It's the reason why I want to do them.
You get bits that are easier, like this, and then this is tough, and then the middle section, actually,
it's actually good because it's so varied.
It's very varied, but
there
are longer runs.
That's all right. I know what I'm doing.
But
I know what I'm doing.
Like I say, it's all good practice, isn't it? And at the end of the day, you'll have something wearable. A good blocking will help hugely, and you'll be able to wear it, and you will have learnt a lot. So
I don't know why, but that sounds a bit harsh. When you look at that, I think it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And to say it'll be wearable. Well,
but some people...
At least it'll be wearable.
No, you know what I mean?
I know,
some people will be like, oh, no, it's not, it doesn't look good enough. But it's scrunched around your neck, isn't it?
Yeah.
And no one's going to notice. And I think it's the fact that you've gained a lot of knowledge.
Have gained a lot of knowledge.
The process.
And if you go back and you look at our previous episodes, you will see we go through the same process when we knit these.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, no.
Yeah,
and then we get through and it's like, and then by the end it's like, oh, that's okay. And it's annoying because the start isn't as good as the end, but like we say, once it's blocked, it evens it all out, and it's more than wearable.
I'd be tempted. I don't know, I don't really have the time to do it, but I'd be tempted to try that middle section and just like only catch floats like once across that big section and just see how
What I'm going to do is
out.
I'm going to approach it in the way that I've approached all the others.
Yeah.
Because it's always, if you go and look at the middle sections on all the others I've ever done, they're always okay. And, you know, it's constantly improving as you go through. So I'm not going to change. What I think the mistake I made was I stopped using my approach.
Right.
I changed my approach, and that was the wrong thing to do. I just need to not
Just
do it in a uniform way.
Right.
It needs to be more. It's merino yak.
Regia,
Yeah.
merino yak.
And it's great.
In those two lovely colours. I can't remember the colours, but there's not that many colours of it, so you'd be able to spot them. Oh, that one's 07521, but I'm not sure which of those two it is, the green or the neutral.
What else is on your needles?
So the next thing is a new pair of socks. So I finished my latest pair of Shorty socks that I was working on for me, and I'm going to show you those later. So I got to cast on another pair. So I'm really racing through these Shorty socks for me. Do you know, I'm doing the Shorty socks this year as a year-long project to repopulate my sock drawer with socks that I really enjoy wearing now, which are shorter socks. So I've got 2 pairs in there already, and we're only just into February, aren't we? So I mean, that's really good. So it meant I could cast on another pair. And when I was dyeing yarn for the Yarny book club, when I was practicing that colourway, I thought, do you know what, I'm going to dye myself up a skein of yarn to knit my next pair of socks. And because I was in this peach mood, I dyed myself this colour, which is like a sort of golden peach. Oh, look at that, isn't it beautiful? And it's got loads of speckles in. It's really, really pretty. It's like a sort of more apricot maybe than peach, I would say. Gorgeous. And I'm knitting myself my next pair. So this time I just fancied putting in some texture. So I just made up a little texture pattern. So I'm going to pop this on a blocker because I'm halfway down the foot. And I just love how the yarn is knitting up. And you can see on the bottom of the foot here how it's just knitting up in plain stocking stitch. Oh, it's so lovely. It almost looks tweedy, doesn't it, with those speckles? So I put in this texture pattern, which, like I said, I just made it up. I wanted it to be really squishy. So I've added in a pearl row, and then it's just a really simple eyelet with like that pearl row to give it some squish. And what adding a pearl row does as well is it gives it quite a lot of horizontal stretch, which makes it really cosy and comfy to wear. And then the other thing I wanted to do was I quite fancied doing a garter-edged heel flap because I've not done that in ages. So I thought, I'm going to practice my technique for a garter-edged heel flap. So I did that, and I think it's come out lovely. And I did a square turn on this pair.
I want to do a garter-edged heel.
Do you? Well, that's okay, you can do.
Yeah, I need some practice on that.
You can put it into, what socks? Are you at the heel yet?
Oh, yeah. I can do it all there.
You can do it on there.
Yeah, I might need to be reminded of what I do.
I can write it down for you.
Thanks.
Have you printed off the pattern? Because I'll just write it on the pattern.
I will have done, yeah.
I'll just write it on the pattern. It's
My Whispers in the Water. No, my Sherwood sock.
Sherwood sock.
Yes.
Yeah, we can replace the heel. It's not
Cool.
a problem. You can do that with any pair, can't you? You can put in whatever heel you want.
That's why I love them.
If you've got a preference of a heel, you can swap it out and do whatever you want.
I tell you why I like
But
heels
aren't
like
they
that,
lovely?
because I think picking up is easier.
Yeah, it's really different. Picking up on the garter-edged heel is really different. And if you struggle, the other thing that a garter-edged heel flap provides is there's no gaps. Sometimes it can be a bit gappy, can't it, on a normal heel flap because you've got those slip stitches on the edge. And if those slip stitches are not tight and neat, then it can be a bit gappy. And I do things now which I've done tutorials on how to make that all neater and to tighten everything up. But a garter-edged heel flap just eradicates that because you don't have those slip stitches at the end. And you're actually picking up, like in the very last pearl bump, if you like, on each of the rows. It's slightly different one side to the other, in exactly where you pick up. And the other thing that I did that actually you don't need to do with this garter edge, and I won't do it on the other one just to compare it, is I just did it automatically. But on a normal heel flap, a normal slip stitch heel flap, I always knit through the back loop after I've picked up the slip stitches. I knit through the back loop, and you don't need to do that on a garter edged one because you don't have to tighten anything up. It's just not the same. And I did automatically on this, and it's just not necessary. You can't really see it, to be fair. And also, you only really need to pick up one stitch in the gap, because very often I'll pick up 2 stitches in the gap to close that corner. But with this, with the garter edge, I find you only need to pick up 1, because the construction is just so different on the edge. And that's perfectly neat. I've not got any holes at all, and it's really neat. And this pattern is lovely and squishy. Let me take it off the blocker and then I can show you. Now I need to do this in a sensible way. Yes, I did it. You can see the pattern up close there, look. And then you can see the foot with the speckles. I'll have loads of this yarn left because these are, it'll probably only use maybe 50, 60 grams for this pair. I'll have loads left, but look at the speckles. So when I dyed this colour, I can't remember the exact colours I used, but I dyed it pink first of all, and I think I used, is it called Valentine Blush? It's a Dharma dyes. I think it's called Valentine Blush. So I dyed it that first, and then I over-dyed it with, of course, Gold Ochre from Jacquard, because that's just what I do. And that's the colour it came out. So when I over-dye it, I'm careful that I don't completely over-dye the pink so that you get some of those pink tones kind of shine through, and it's really pretty. And then I speckled on top using Jacquard Brown, which is a really great colour for speckles. It's just that perfect dark colour without it being black, and it worked out just beautifully. So yeah, I'm really enjoying those, and I'm using Magic Loop for this pair. The last couple of pairs I've used double points, but I just fancied Magic Loop. I tend to prefer double points when it's just a plain vanilla sock. I really just enjoy going round and round on double points when it's plain. When I've got any kind of pattern going on, I prefer Magic Loop. I don't know why, I just find it less sort of... You have to think less because you've only got 2 needles to think about for the pattern, whereas with double points I've got 4 needles where I've got to make sure the pattern is all correct. So you're really enjoying knitting this pair and looking forward to doing the next Shorty pair. I'm really sort of knocking them out quite quick, which is lovely.
Look at my amazing bag. Yes, Kay made this for me. It's my Back to the Future powered by Time Machine jumper bag. Oh yes.
Is that what it says?
That's what it says.
Does it say powered by?
Yes,
so it does. I never noticed the powered by.
Look, there's 2 moments for me. No, there's actually only one, but I'm going to say this 2 because I know you love this bit.
Okay.
You love turning a heel and changing direction on a sock.
I do.
Because you think it's like so clever and everything, and it is really clever. But for me, what's just as clever and even more enjoyable is when 3 things become one. When 2 sleeves join onto a body and suddenly you've got a jumper instead of like 3 idiotic things all like stuffed into a bag trying to lovely. You're like when is this actually going to come together and become something? Cool. And I just love the whole process of like I lay it out on the kitchen table and work it all out and line it all up and then join it all together, and it's just the business. And then what I love even more,
it's weird to have the whole jumper under your needles, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It's exciting.
Back in the day, I was Mum always used to knit in pieces, and you never had a situation where, I mean, sometimes if you were doing the collar maybe of a jumper you would pick back up, wouldn't you? But other than that, I
absolutely I just love that whole process, and I think it's like sort of musical and it just all sort of works.
It's lovely.
So the sleeves are joined on. This is the Aaron Harper Gansey knitted in Jameson and Smith. Yeah. And the Jameson and Smith, with every sort of round, I appreciate
massive,
it.
Massive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was just saying to Dan is the stitches under the arm is a huge hole.
Yeah.
But that's how many stitches it's said to have. So, there's a lot of grafting to do there, but, that's fine.
Yes. With every round, I've started to appreciate the Jameson & Smith all the more. It knits up really well. It looks really good. Stitches are lovely and even. It's been a really, thoroughly enjoyable experience. And what's so great now is I'm moments away from starting the yoke, which is going to be great.
And you get to use the blue again. So here's doesn't that blue look
blue and
amazing?
The white. So the blue and the white is going to, or the cream.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's more white than
It looks gorgeous. And this blue is called Muscle Blue.
And that's the white that's going to come in as well, which will be really good. Because it's 2-ply, not a lot of bounce. So when you're doing ribbing, if you're doing something that's sort of sucking in, it makes it really hard on the fingers, especially early on, when you're on early rounds.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got out of the ribbing and sort of into plain knitting, then it just became absolutely
the fabric is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It feels absolutely lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I will
really
be honest.
Silky.
It's the one downside.
Yeah.
It is rubbish. I don't like that at all.
No. It's a very firm.
Yeah.
There's no sort of elasticity.
I'll be interested.
That word.
I'll be interested
pull it.
how it wears, to be honest. I think it'll wear brilliantly. I think it'll be hard wearing. But
I think it will.
It'll be interesting to see, does it feel like it's got any give in it when you're wearing it? And is that okay?
I mean, the fabric it does.
Right. That's cool.
It feels lovely. The fabric feels lovely, So
it should be fine.
It just feels gorgeous. It's, it's quite soft. It's surprisingly soft, really. And I've got on today, actually, I should have said, I've got on the Cascades by Michelle Wong that Dan knit a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
And this
I've got to do cables.
Isn't it beautiful, this? This is knit from King Cole, Merino Blend DK, and the colourway is Chanterelle. And this yarn is described as anti-tickle, right? And it's a superwash.
It sounds like a CBeebies character.
It's not anti-tickle. It's more like Uncle Tickle, I would say. It's fine. I've had it on for a bit now.
Extremely tickle.
It's fine, but I can feel it on my skin. It's definitely not anti-tickle if you're sensitive. You might think it's totally fine. If you wear Let Lopey all the time, this will feel like, oof,
heaven.
Beautiful.
Thank heaven.
But if you're very sensitive, then you will feel a tickle. It is not anti-tickle, I would say.
You've successfully made your point, Kate.
Okay, but this
it's tickling like an absolute swine.
No, it's not. It's not bad at all. But just putting this on my neck, there is a tickle with this as well, but it's no worse.
Just wear
I would
something
say
underneath it.
It's no worse than this. I've got like a vest on under this because I didn't want it right next to my skin, but you didn't need to know that.
Yeah, no. This is all
interesting information.
It definitely is
it?
Interesting information, and we've successfully established that both these yarns are ticklish.
Yes. They're not. They aren't cashmere. Definitely not.
No, and yeah. It does feel that it's got a slightly rustic feel to it.
It does. This one does. Yeah, but I mean, it fits beautifully. I
would say that has a more rustic feel.
I love the way. I love the neck. It's the perfect.
This feels more rustic than that.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
it does. That was the point I was trying to make, I think. But yeah, the Dan got the fit really great. The sleeves have got a bit of give, but they're not really room. They're perfect.
That's half the battle.
It's great.
That's half the battle when you're knitting garments. And it took me a bit of time to learn that for myself, but also absolutely for Kay, because, the first garments I knitted were for Kay. Initially too small, second too big, nailed this one.
Like the three bears.
Nailed this one. And, I feel confident moving on. And what I learnt in my dabble with tank tops is I'm a sweater knitter.
That's a good word, isn't it?
It's called public schooling.
I just like that word.
We were taught to use that in lessons. No, we weren't. Make a note.
Yeah, today you have to use the word dabble.
Yes.
Somewhere within a conversation.
It's Blackadder. It's Stephen Fry in Blackadder. I can't remember what the word is, but he tells Darling to make a note about a particular word. I like it and I want to use it more often. Dabble, definitely. It's a good one. Yeah, so Aaron Harper Gansey into the yoke quite soon, which is going to be lovely. Great project. Really enjoyed knitting it, and I am a sweater knitter, and I'll be sticking to knitting sweaters.
That's fabulous news for me.
To the next one that I'm going to cast on, and I do feel like I so enjoyed knitting this. It was such a challenge, but at no point did I feel like, I don't know what I'm doing.
No.
So I really fancy doing another sort of cable-y.
And I love there's lots of double moss stitch.
Yeah.
It's all on the sleeves and all,
everywhere.
down the body as well. And I love it. I love double moss stitch. It's such a great texture.
What else is on your needles?
My third thing. Oh, and have you been tallying up the cast-ons?
When have you done a new cast-on?
The last two were both new cast-ons.
Right.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
So basically all three of
The
mine.
computer knows. The cast-ons will have been tallied.
Okay, all three of my projects today are new cast-ons.
Would be helpful, though, if you did say new cast-on.
I'm telling you now.
Yes. Well remembered.
So this is a new cast-on.
So all the projects are new cast-ons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All three. So yeah, this is another new cast-on. And this cast-on was inspired by a couple of things. One is that I wanted another one of them, which is always a good reason, isn't it? And then the other reason was I wanted to knit it inspired by the Detroit Lions. Now, unfortunately, Detroit went out in the last game. They lost to the 49ers, which we kind of expected would happen.
Yes. Now, look, there'll be lots of people out there who are going, no, they deserve to get to the Super Bowl, and all of those types of things. And
well,
look, I've followed American football for a long time, and this won't last long for those of you who don't like sport. I've followed American football for about 35 years. So, and I mean, I really know it well, because when I like something, I tend to read books about it. I used to buy the big, thick American football books every year that used to list everything. Now get the Lindy's thing, watch everything I can, really obsessed with it. And Detroit had a bad defence.
Yeah, they have all year.
All year, I would say to Kay, it's just a disaster. And to be fair, the season before as well. Now, they tried to sort it out this year.
Yeah.
They signed some players, got injured. 2 players got injured. One player's not really worked out at all. And so the defence, let's be honest, was rubbish. So they got further than they should have done. And they got further because they've got an outstanding coach.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
the
brilliant.
offence is brilliant.
And I don't think anyone can argue that the Super Bowl, and I find this hard to say too, but you can't argue with the fact that San Francisco are a better all-round team than what Detroit is.
And we love San Francisco.
We do.
So,
So San Francisco, Kansas City, that's a great Super Bowl.
We want the 49ers to win.
Very sad.
Obviously.
Would have been great. Would have been a great story if Detroit had got there. It would have been a very hard game to win.
It would.
Because the defence is rubbish.
Yeah.
So what they need to do is in the draft, they need to sort out the defence, and then next year they can come back stronger.
Next year is the year.
Please continue, caller.
So, what I wanted to do was knit myself another Bits and Bobs cowl. Now, the Bits and Bobs cowl is one of my designs, and actually I had it on last video show, and a few people asked me what the cowl was afterwards. I just totally forgot to say what I was wearing, so I do apologise for that. But this is what I was wearing on the last show, and this was the second one that I knit. I've got the first one here. So the Bits and Bobs cowl was a design that I put out a few years ago now, and it was sort of like a follow-up design to the Bits and Bobs blanket. But this is obviously knit in the round. The blanket is knit flat. And I wear, this is the original one, which is a bit stretched out at the moment because it needs a bit of a block. This was the original one that's on the pattern that I use leftovers for. And then I subsequently knit this one, which was a mini skein pack from Pixie Yarns, held double with, I think it was Cascade Heritage in snow. The stitch, it looks like brioche, but hold it a bit closer. If you've knit the Bits and Bobs blanket, you know what I'm talking about. But here is the stitch. So it looks like brioche, but it's not brioche. It's not knitted the way that brioche is knitted, because I don't enjoy knitting brioche, but I love the stitch sort of squishiness that you get. So the stitch pattern I used is a modified fisherman's rib. In the Bits and Bobs blanket, I think a lot of people presume it's just a fisherman's rib, which is a fisherman's rib uses knits below stitches, and it's based on a knit one, purl one rib. The Bits and Bobs blanket is not like that. There are no purl stitches in the Bits and Bobs blanket. It's all knits and knits below. I just wanted to say that, to emphasise that, because I think, it's a popular pattern. A lot of people knit it, so anybody who's knit the blanket will know how the stitches worked. But I think if you just look at the pattern, you might just think, oh, it's just a fisherman's rib. It's not just a fisherman's rib. I took the time on the blanket to work out a way of it just being knit stitches, and it is just knits. There's no purls at all in that. Now, obviously, the cowl is worked in the round, so there are purl stitches, but it's not knit in the traditional fisherman's rib way at all. It's different to that. So I just wanted to sort of emphasise that. So yeah, it's held double, and the blanket as well is held double. So the original one, I used 100 gram skein of, I think it would have been Cascade Heritage again, I think, and then just leftovers. So it uses 200 grams altogether. So it's a great project for leftovers. You just need one full skein to hold as the background if you want the background colour to be the same all the way through, and then a load of leftovers. You can use a set of mini skeins, which is what I did here, or you can knit it up to match your football team. So here's the one I've started, and look at the blue. So this blue I actually dyed because the colour for the Detroit Lions is Honolulu blue, it's called. It's quite a specific blue. Sometimes on some merchandise it looks more sort of going towards turquoise, whereas sometimes it looks more of a brilliant blue. But I dyed this colour, and I think I got it pretty much right. I sort of compared it to lots of t-shirts we've got with logos on, and I think it looks really good. But then, and I dyed a grey as well, which is this grey that I'm just knitting in, because the colours are blue, grey and white. So I've just got a undyed here for the white. But then I'm pulling in other greys and blues that I've got, because I don't want this just to look completely, like that. I want it to have some variation in it. So I've got a more silvery grey, a paler grey, you can see. And I've got this other blue. And I've got a couple of speckled blues as well. I think that one's a Sherry Iris. And this one I dyed. So it'll have lots of different blues interspersed with creams and greys, and I think it'll be lovely. And I've never done one before where it's like such a defined stripe, and I think it just looks so good. And it actually looks the same on the other side. The stitch looks slightly different because it's the reverse side, but what I mean is that if I show you the reverse side, it's equally as defined on the reverse. So it's very reversible, this stitch. And I'm just really enjoying it. I find this, knitting this pattern, it's really soothing, because you do very much get into a rhythm with it. And once you get into how you work the stitches, I kind of knit it as quickly as I would do stocking stitch. There's not really a lot of difference. It takes you longer because the nature of the fabric means that you're effectively sort of working 2 rows to get 1 row. So, but that's what gives you the squish. But I love it, and I can't wait to have a cowl in all these colours. It might be that I put this away until something football-y happens, like Dan said there's the combine. Did you say that? And then there's obviously the draft in April time, and then we'll get into training camp and all that. So it might be something that I just pull out when there's something football-y going on. So it might take me until the Super Bowl next year to finish it, but that's fine, isn't it? There's no rush for these things. But I'm just really enjoying knitting it. And I love these cowls. Bryony stole this one, actually. And she's been wearing this one. And then, like I say, I wear the original one every morning with my pyjamas. I throw it on and it's just so lovely and cosy. It's quite, I'll put it on just to show you, but I did have it on last show, this one. But it's a really cosy sort of squishiness around your neck. It's really lovely. So yeah, that's my third bits and bobs on the go, but very much enjoying it.
Right, I blooming love a good book, and I absolutely love gorgeous skeins of yarn. And what better way than to combine the two? And that's exactly what Kay's going to do in the next episode of the Yarny Book Club.
I love reading books and adore dyeing yarn, so I thought in this series it would be wonderful to combine them. So, over the next 6 episodes, join me as I share with you some of my favourite books and we create colourways inspired by them. Along the way, I hope you find some inspiration for some great reads, and we also discover some fantastic new colourways. Welcome to the Yarny Book Club.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second Yarny Book Club. So last time we dyed up yarn inspired by the fantastic Agatha Christie book, And Then There Were None. And I saw that lots of you have either read the book already, or you went and got the book at the library, or listened to it, or you were rereading it maybe. And also dyeing up the yarn. So that was just brilliant, and I think it was a great way to get into this new series with a absolute, classic author. And it was just so fantastic, and I really enjoyed knitting the cowl as well, our reading corner cowl. So today we're going to be adding to that cowl because we are going to be dyeing up our second yarn. So today is the same but a little bit different, because last time, if you remember, I dyed up the main colour, the And Then There Were None colourway, but then I also dyed up a coordinating colour that I called Miss Havisham that I'm going to be using alternately through the whole of the cowl. So this time we're not going to be dyeing up that second full skein, but what we are going to be doing is dyeing up a couple of mini skeins. So I'm going to do the full 100 gram skein, but then I'm also going to dye up a couple of mini skeins. And the minis are not intended to be knit into the cowl. I thought it would be fun to do a couple of minis kind of inspired by the main colourway. So they do coordinate with it, but they're not necessarily like a bold contrast or anything like that. I just wanted to sort of take a few of the colours that we're going to use in the main skein and then use those in a different way to dye up a couple of minis. Here is everything that I'm going to need every time I dye up some yarn. So I'll start from kind of this side and work over this way. So first of all, over here I've got my pans that I dye in, my pots. I always dye in pots. I don't dye in those flat sort of tray things. I always dye in the pots, and these are stainless steel pots, and it's sort of like a casserole pot. I like the ones that have got 2 handles because they're nice and easy to lift around. All of your equipment that you use for dyeing your yarn, you should only use for dyeing yarn. So pack it in a box, keep it somewhere separate, and that's your dyeing equipment. So yeah, we've got our 2 pots. We've got our mordant, which for me is citric acid because it's a dried product. It's actually a food product. It's what makes sweets that sort of fizzy, sour fizziness. So it's really easy to store. It's really nice and cheap to buy. I think this big tub was like £10 or something from Amazon. I've got a little plastic measuring cup because sometimes we will need that. And then here I've got some paintbrushes and I've got my measuring spoon. So the paintbrushes are for speckling, and the measuring spoon is when we are either measuring dye directly into the water, or sometimes I also sprinkle the dye on with this. And this is a 1/8 of a teaspoon measure. We've got my mask, of course, always wear a mask when we are dyeing yarn. I've got a little bowl here. This is a little Pyrex ramekin dish that I stole from the ones in my cupboard, and I use this for when I'm mixing my own dye colours. So when I'm combining colours, I use that to mix the dye powders. I've got my design book with all my notes in, of course. My big mixing spoon. I couldn't do my dyeing without my big mixing spoon. I've got some old tea towels. I've got a piece of oilcloth here. And these are just to protect the work surface because I'm dyeing in the kitchen. And then I've got 2 pairs of gloves. I've got a heavy duty pair for when the water's hot, and then I've just got one of these sort of surgical pairs, I suppose they are, because I don't like wearing thick heavy gloves most of the time, so these are really great. Okay, so I need to tell you about today's book. Now, this book is one that I first read when I was in my 20s. Since then, I must have read it 3 or 4 times over the years, and I absolutely love it. It's quite a sort of epic story. So I will tell you what it is, and then you will know whether you've read it already or if you want to run out and grab yourself a copy. So the book is by Danielle Steele, and it's called The Ghost. I will tell you more about this story when we sort of have a sit down and a chat about it. But basically, this book is the story of the main character is a man called Charles Waterston. He takes like a sabbatical from work and decides to go skiing. And he's travelling up from New York up to, I think it's Massachusetts, up that way. And gets stuck in a snowstorm and ends up staying there. And then from there, another story emerges, and it's actually going back in time quite a long way to the late 1700s. And it tells the story of a woman that lived in that area and then how they become connected. So Danielle Steele, The Ghost, it is. And the specific inspiration that I took from the book for the colourway is the chateau that is within the book, and I'll talk a bit more about that when we sit down. But basically, there's this chateau that's located in the woods, and within the book it describes the colours that are on the walls and the furniture and things like that when the main character first sees the chateau. So there's quite a good description of it in terms of the colours that are there, and I was like, brilliant. This is where I've got to take the inspiration. So that's the specific part of the book. And what we need to do now is I need to just talk about the yarn that we're going to be dyeing, and I need to tell you about the dye colours, of course. In my bowl, soaking away here, what I've got is 1 full skein. So this is 100 grams of fingering weight yarn. It's the same base that I've been using for dyeing for quite some time now. It's an 85-15 merino nylon, and it's 400 meters. So that's our main skein, and we're just going to be dyeing 1 skein of that main colour. But then I've got a couple of minis here. You can probably see there's a colour difference here. All that is because the minis are a sparkle base, and it's the sparkle within it that kind of makes it look like a grey tone. So I've got 2 20-gram minis here that I'm going to be dyeing up in a sort of inspired by colourway. They do match really, really beautifully, but it's not necessarily a high contrast. But it's such a beautiful colour that this came out. It was quite accidental, this colourway, but then when I thought about it, I thought, well, that ties in perfectly with the inspiration, and it's such a pretty colour that I just had to do it. So yeah, I've got two 20-gram minis here as well, soaking away. Now these do have sparkle in, and normally when it's a sparkle yarn, I don't soak it with citric acid because too much acid contact with the sparkle can dull it. But I haven't had this soaking for too long, so I'm going with it today. So of course now I need to tell you about the colours. So I've got 5 different colours and I've got a mixture. Oh, I've got all of the brands today. So I'll tell you the colourway, name the specific colourway, and then I'll describe the colour. So if you don't have that exact dye, you should have something similar, or you'll be able to get hold of something similar. So the first one I've got is from Landscape Dyes, and it's called Mist, and it's basically a pale silvery grey. Beautiful, beautiful colour, so you just want a silvery grey. We've then got Dharma Dyes. Now this is a colourway that I've used quite a lot, and I don't think you can get it anymore. And I did hesitate about using this colour, and I trialled it with a different dye colour, but it just wasn't quite right for me. But I'm going to tell you a couple of alternatives. So the colour I'm using is number 482 Delphinium Blue, and this is as it sounds. It's, you know, the plant, the beautiful flower, a delphinium, it's that gorgeous blue colour. So it's a sort of sky blue, but it does carry quite a lot of pink in it, so it's like a warmer blue, I find. But if you can't get hold of this, then Jacquard Sky Blue would be a good alternative, or, you know, any blue that is on the sort of paler side, not the sort of deep saturated brilliant blues. You want a nice sort of sky blue. We've then got another Dharma dye, and that's Peach Blush, exactly as it sounds. It's a gorgeous peach tone. Now peach is a funny one because sometimes it can be more kind of pinkish and sometimes it can be more yellowish. I find that this one, the Peach Blush, is a true peach. And then we've got Jacquard. I've got to have this one, haven't I? It's Gold Ochre. I should have that like emblazoned across the top of my forehead or something, because I use it so often, and I honestly try to avoid using it. And again, when I trialled this, I used a different shade. But I'm just like, do you know what? I need Gold Ochre. So, Jacquard, Gold Ochre. And then the final one is another Landscape dye, and this is called Sugarcane. This one is another sort of yellow tone, but it's hard to describe. It's sort of even slightly greenish. It's a yellowish colour, but it's got hints of green and hints of sort of gold in it as well. You just basically want a yellow tone that's not like Gold Ochre. So a more kind of greenish toned, maybe yellow, or light toned yellow. So that's everything. It's now time to get dyeing our book inspired yarn. Right, so in my pot I've got it about 1/3 full of water, and we've got a scoop of citric acid in there, about a tablespoon, and that's just heating up nicely. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to put my skein of yarn into the pot. Give it a little shake just to release all the fibres, and then as we drop it in, we're just going to distribute it all over the surface so we get as much yarn on the surface as possible. So the technique that I'm going to be using today, it's going to produce a variegated yarn, but it's in a very kind of soft watercolory way. And the way that we're going to achieve that is by using liquid dyes. What I've got over here is my little pot that I use when I do this kind of technique. This is just a little small plastic pot, and it's really good because it's measured out into millilitres on the side, so you can make sure that you get the right volume of water doing it this way. Whilst that's heating up, what I'm going to do is just mix up my first colour. The first colour I'm going to use is Delphinium Blue, and this is quite a strong colour actually, although it produces a nice soft blue. In the pot, as you can see, it is quite a strong colour. So I'm just going to use about 1/4 of a teaspoon. This teaspoon measure is 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I'm going to use 1/4 of that. Drop that into your pot. And then I'm going to pop some water in here. I find warm water is best. The dye just goes into the water much better than if it's cold. So I'm just going to put in some warm water from the tap to just around about 100 ml and give that a nice stir, because we want to make sure that all of the dye powder has dissolved. A good way of judging the strength of your colour, I find, is just a sort of very rough, quick sort of test. Just get a piece of kitchen towel and just get a little bit in your spoon and just pop it on. And you can see that's giving me a nice, it's sort of, I mean, it's not really pale, but that is about the shade that I want. It doesn't want to be, well, it's like a medium strong shade, I guess. So we're going to now pour in the first colour, this blue. And what we're going to do is kind of do, I guess, little ribbons. And we're going to do it in a few places. And I've got my big mixing spoon for this. Now, my jug here has got a spout. I don't like to use the spout because it produces, for me, too fine of a flow. And it's too much of a line. And I want it to be a bit more blendy. So I just pour it from the side of the jug. So I'll go over here first of all. So just pour a bit in like that. And then I'm just going to push it a little bit. Can you see the sort of effect it has? We get a little bit of intenseness in the middle, and then when we push it, we get a gorgeous soft blue. So I'll do a bit more over here. A bit more maybe in the middle. You can do sort of long ribbons, and then you could do shorter areas, because how you pour it onto the yarn, it will dictate how it's going to knit up. So for example, where we've got here, there's like a long run of yarn coming down from here. If I was to pour it straight down here like that, that means that you would get a little run of it, so you get quite a few stitches in that colour. Whereas if I go across the yarn, I'm just going to get 1 or 2 stitches in the colour. So it's up to you really. Now I've got a little bit left in there, so what I'm going to do is just shuffle this around a bit with my other hand. So I've just got a little bit left, so I'm going to put a bit up there and then a bit over here. There we go. So that's our first colour. Now, because my water's nice and hot and there's not a lot of dye, that really dissipates almost immediately. So whilst that's just making sure that it's completely set, I'm going to arrange my next colour. Okay, so the peach one we're going to do next. And I'm going to do this time about 1/2 of an 1/8. So a bit more than the blue. And I'm going to put in a bit more water. Blue's quite a strong colour and it will tend to dominate, I find. So I'm going to put a bit more of the peach in because this is such a pretty peach shade. So I'm going to go to 175 mils, something like that. So I'm going to take a little bit again and drop it on. You can see there's tiny bits of dye powder in there, so it hasn't fully dissolved. But you can see the shade, it's so pretty, and that is about the strength that I want. So I'm just going to give that another stir just to make sure we've dissolved all of those particles. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, but before we do that, I'm just going to give it a little shuffle. So you know I like to shuffle the yarn and just make sure. There we go. And when I pour on the peach, so same technique really, just pour on. I'm going to try and miss the blue areas I don't mind, it's going to mingle. At some areas it's going to mingle and that's fine. But largely I want to try and miss the areas that I've already dyed. So that's the blue and the peach, and isn't it looking just lovely? So whilst that's just having a little set, we'll do the next colour. You can see how we're working this now. Now this one is a really pale colour. It looks sort of blue in the tub, but it is pale. So we're going to use a full 1/8. Okay, dump that in. And I'm going to fill it to about 200 mils. Same thing again, just look for areas that are still white. Okay, so the sugar cane now, and I'm going to go for about a 1/2. So I'm going to pop in 100 mils at this point, but we might add more of it. Now, we're going to go on to the final colour, which is our gold ochre. My thought behind this was, there's a description in the book, it describes all the colours of the walls, but then it also says that there's quite a lot of gilding. So I'm like, right, okay, this gives me an excuse to use my gold ochre. Don't go over the top with it, because it would have a habit of sort of dominating. So I'm just going to use about 1/4 of my 1/8 of a teaspoon, and I'm going to fill this up to 200 mils. So before I pop some of that in, I'm just gonna have another little shuffle and a look at the skein. I'm a bit of a sucker for peach at the moment. I really like peach, and I never used to. It never used to be a colour that I was that keen on, but I really like it now. So in with the gold ochre, but go easy with it, you know, don't go nuts. And you will probably find that if you hit some of the blue, you're going to get some slight greenish tones, which is lovely. You know, I love the way that gold ochre changes the colour of other colours that are in there. It just brightens it. So we've got a couple of areas there now. So if I lift it up, can you see the difference here with this yellow? How bright that area is. But then it gives the whole, and here look. But it really like just lifts, I find, the whole colour. It stops it from being a bit too pastel, a bit too subdued. Because I do like a contrast. So I'm just going to do a bit more, and then we will be done. Have a bit there and a bit over in this peachy area. And just use your big spoon to bring other areas up, and there we go. So now we can raise the temperature, because every time we've been putting water in, it's going to lower the temperature. So bring your temperature back up, and as soon as it starts simmering, this will be done. We can then pop it outside to cool down, and we can move on to our lovely minis. Okay, so we're going to dye up our 2 little minis. So in my pot here, I've got water that's only about 1/4 full, and we've got maybe 1/2 scoop of citric acid, because we're only doing a couple of minis. There's only 40 grams of yarn. So we're starting with gold ochre, everybody. We're just going to put in about 1/4 of my teaspoon. But I think this is a good opportunity as well to see gold ochre in its sort of purest form. Oh, isn't it lovely? So give that a mix. My idea, first of all, when I was dyeing these minis, I thought, oh, I'll just do a tonal gold ochre because then that's the gilding that's in the chateau. But actually, it just seemed a bit too plain. So I then carried on, and the colour that I came out with, it made me think of rose gold. Do you know that beautiful sort of pinkish toned gold? So that's nicely mixed in, and that's nice and hot. So I'm going to dump my 2 minis into there, and as it goes into the water, I'm just going to sort of wish it around like this so that we get a nice tonal, because what goes into the water first is going to get more dye. So when it's all in the water, just quickly give it a little move, and you can see that dye's virtually gone already. If you just keep stirring for a minute, the dye will have gone. My next thought was, well, I need to dull that down a bit. It wouldn't be that bright because, you know, it's centuries old, this chateau. It would be duller. So I thought, right, I'm going to put in some of the mist because that will dull it down. So I'm going to whip out the yarn. My bowl's empty now, so I'm just going to pop it into the bowl, and that'll give you a chance to see the golden colour by itself. And I'm now going to put in some of the mist. So I'm going to use 2 spoons of this. So 2 of the 1/8 teaspoon. It might seem a lot, but it's a really subtle colour, this. And give that a stir. So it just gives the water a nice silvery look. So just grab your yarn, yeah, and just pop that in. Now what initially happens, you kind of get a greenish tone. So it sort of tarnishes, if you like, the gold. By adding the next colour, it just was totally beautiful. Sometimes you can't, you know, if you keep adding colour and adding colour, it will ultimately just turn into brown yarn. Adding this final colour is what turned it, for me, into like a rose gold. So that grey's totally gone now. So let's just get the yarn out one more time and we'll put in the final colour. So you can see in the bowl, it's really dulled it down. It looks quite uninteresting. And the final thing we're going to do is take the peach blush, and I'm going to put in sort of like a flat 1/8 of a teaspoon of the peach. And I had no idea what was going to happen when I did this. But when it was dry, I just thought, my goodness, that is so pretty, and it just made me think of rose gold. So we're going to drop it back in. So I just sort of leave it because I want some of the gold tones still to be shining through. So I'm just going to not touch it for a minute and just let that peach absorb in on that kind of underside. Because the finished mini has sort of a soft faded gold and then that kind of rosy colour coming up as well. So just leave it for a few minutes and let it absorb. Okay, so that peach is almost all gone now, and I'm hoping that you can see now. It will look better when it's, you know, we've got it dry, and I'll obviously show it you then. But we've now got this kind of, oh, it's so pretty. I mean, I'm not quite sure, like a rose gold is the only way that I could probably describe this colour. Some areas we've got more pinky, and then here it's more kind of faded gold with some of that pinky colour shining through from the underside. That's our beautiful rose gold, and I think Sarah Ferguson, who lived in this house originally, would vastly approve of this colour. So I'm going to just bring that to simmering point, nice and hot, and then it can cool down outside with our main colour. So there we go. That's our yarn all dyed up and cooling outside. So come back in part 2 when we're going to get that yarn in, we're going to give it a wash, we're going to get it dried, we're going to scale it up, and we're going to start knitting it into our cowl. So I will see you back soon.
Those colourways look gorgeous already.
Yes.
I particularly love the minis because they remind me of Chatsworth's windows.
Ah.
Do you remember when they re-gilded the windows?
Yes, I
and
do.
we went this years ago, and it looked just like those minis, just amazing. So exciting though, because it's just the start. We've seen how to dye up the colourways. When we come back, oh yes, going to be sorting it all out.
Sorting it all out,
governor.
Yeah.
And then knitting it up, that's terrible. Knitting it up into the reading corner cowl. But most excitingly of all, we get to sit down in Kay's reading corner for a reading corner review.
Yes.
And get to hear all about the book and why Kay loves it so much. It's going to be so exciting.
Yay.
Right now, though, oh my goodness, it's time for a bumper edition of, I nearly said Endy Bits. Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
It is a bit of a bumper edition. So the first thing that's off my needles will demonstrate how bad I am at filming videos.
Oh, yes.
Because I knit a hat for Bryony's boyfriend.
Yes.
Bryony's boyfriend just turned 18 and I thought, I've got to just, whip him up something small. And I only had a few days. I just suddenly thought to myself, oh gosh, should I make him something? I thought, I'll just knit him a hat quickly. So I decided to knit the Bargello hat, and it uses the Bargello? I think that's how you pronounce it. Stitch, which is a slip stitch pattern that produces a sort of zigzag. You'll see on the video. It's really pretty. And when I knit the first one, I used a particular yarn. It's a chunky yarn, so I thought I'm going to go and use that again because it's acrylic and he'll be able to just throw this in the washer and it won't be a problem.
That's knit to you.
Oh, was it knit to you?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a knit to you pattern.
So Kay's Knitting University, where she did courses teaching you all different, going into real detail on particular skills. There's one on socks. Yeah. There was a previous one that you'd done on a different type of colour work, and then this was the second one. I'm virtually certain it's the second one that you did on colour work. Right.
So the yarn that I used in the pattern and that I used again is Stylecraft Bellissima Chunky, and I used these two colours. So this is 100% acrylic. It is, the blue is double denim. We love a bit of double denim, and the grey is silver lining. So I used a good amount of the blue because that was the main colour, but not very much of the grey. So I've got enough to do another hat, but the other way around, definitely. So that'd be fun. So, and it knit up in I did it in, I think 2 days. I knit it in a couple of days because it's chunky weight, knits up really quick. I think I used 5.5mm needles, I think it was. And this yarn's lovely, actually. It's acrylic. I don't normally use acrylic, but sometimes for gifts, I think it's a good thing, isn't it, when you don't know how it's going to be laundered. You don't want to give somebody who is a non-sort of knitting family something they've got to hand wash. I just think, I wouldn't really want to do that. So, yeah, this is a really nice yarn, and it was lovely to knit a quick hat. Great little project.
What else is off your needles?
So the next thing is I finished the little stripey mitts that I was knitting. So these are the fingerless mitts that I knit using the 2-row striping. Is it a method? I don't know. There's 2-row stripes of these two colours. And it's these mitts where I did a different thumb gusset increase. So I increased the thumb gussets using knit front backs instead of the traditional left and right lifted increases, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. And they've just turned out so lovely, these mitts, and I'm definitely going to knit another pair, and I might even think about sticking out a pattern for these because I just am so pleased with them. I think it's just such a lovely little thing to knit up. And I love can you see the thumb? It's so neat. Maybe I'll pop out a pattern for these, but I am going to knit them up in a different colour for that if I was to do that, because these are very kind of Halloween-y, aren't they? But they're just lovely and all finished.
What's next?
So the third thing off my needles is a pair of socks, and it's the Shorty socks that I was working on last time from Sherry Iris. I said the Shorty socks from Sherry Iris. The yarn is from Sherry Iris is what I meant. And the colourway is called Granny's Bonnets, which was a flower-themed colourway. And the flower is an Aquilegia, which is a lovely, lovely flower. So these are all finished and done and blocked and ready for my sock stash drawer. But what I wanted to tell you is in my little sock notebook, I made a note that I cast these on the 11th of January and I finished them on the 27th of January. So for me, that's like super quick. And then I immediately cast on that peach pear the same day. So I've made a note of those as well. So I'll be able to tell you how long they take me. I quite like having that knowledge of how long something takes, so that if, for example, I'm in a situation where I need to knit a quick pair of socks, I can kind of look back and go, oh yeah, those ones didn't take me very long, I'll do those again. So yeah, very nice. I'm not mad on the pooling situation that happened here. But, you know, that's just me, isn't it? It's better on the other side. I prefer it with the pinks and purples than the sort of big amount of white. But it doesn't matter, you know. I won't see that when they're on my feet. So they're all done and lovely. And then the final thing that I've got to show you is something really exciting.
Okay, so we're famous for our Bakery Bears Advent Calendar.
Yes.
And we realised about a year or two ago, we need more than just Advent.
Yes.
We need Valenvent.
We do.
Yes, just a month after Advent's over, how's about a brand new Valenvent?
A brand new event.
That's a bit like Advent, but completely different.
Yeah.
So, pattern, just like we do
Yeah.
at Advent.
Yeah.
But also, this time, for the first time ever, some videos. To accompany the whole process.
Yes.
So it's super exciting, amazing pattern, and you can get this completely free if you're a Bakery Bear patron.
Yeah.
Of any level.
Yes.
So join up as a patron. You can be knitting one of these gorgeous Valen scarves.
Yes.
Yes, it's not something you stick on your caravan when it's too cold. Stick on the Valen scarf around the vents, slide it shut, stops the drafts when you're asleep. No, that's not what it is. The Valen scarf is, in fact, this.
Yes. So here's the scarf. Oh, isn't it lovely? So it starts way down here and goes through all these beautiful colours.
I'd be great selling caravans.
You would. You'd be very good caravan salesman. So this isn't it the same sort of method that I've been knitting scarves recently? Do you know the Advent scarf that I made and also the Halloween one that I did? But this time when I knit this one up, I designed it using 14 mini skeins because it's Valentine's Day.
14 days, I like it.
Yeah, Valenvent runs from the 1st of February to the 14th of February. So hence why I wanted to use 14 mini skeins for this, because the idea is that, like an Advent, you might want to knit a section every day. And it's perfectly possible. I've timed myself and I put all this information into the videos and the pattern. I chose 14 20-gram fingering weight mini skeins, and then I used a contrast colour, and the contrast colour is from Malabrigo. It's their Ultimate Sock and it's Côte d'Azur, and that used about 40 grams, I think, plus I fringed it. But the minis I got from Lay Family Yarn. These are Kelly's minis. And I chose a palette myself. I just went onto her website and she's got all of the minis on there. And I just chose a bunch. I think I ordered more than 14. It might have been sort of more like 16, 18, I don't know. I just ordered a palette that I wanted to have a look at, and then when I got them, I laid them all out. Oh, it was so fun. I laid them all out on the carpet and I was moving them around and deciding what I wanted, and I swapped a couple actually, and Kelly very kindly just swapped them for me. I sent a couple of colours back and she swapped them for me to come up with this. So it started down here with these deep aubergine, sort of fading through to a mauvey colour, and then it went into some reds, going into pink, and then into peach, like a peachy pink, and then more sort of true peaches, and ended with this really pale peach. So it transitions from this really dark, moody sort of colour through to the peach. And it's just lovely. So yeah, that's what everybody will be knitting. So some people bought kits for this. Kelly put some kits up in her shop. And some people are just using stash, which is brilliant.
And you can come and join in now. The link to this is in the show notes below. And it's available to all patrons, completely free.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll be giving this to Bryony today now. She's very happy to get another scarf.
Right. Gorgeous yarn.
Yes.
I want more gorgeous yarn and wonderful projects as we return for the second part of the Yarny Book Club.
Welcome back everybody to part 2 of the Yarny Book Club. So our yarn is almost cool outside now and it's nearly ready to bring in and get it rinsed and dried and all of that good stuff. But before we do that, let's just take a little trip to my cosy reading corner and I'll tell you a bit more about today's book. Okay, so here I am in my little reading corner to tell you about today's book. So Danielle Steele the Ghost. I initially read this many years ago. It centres around the main character who's called Charles Waterston. He's an architect, he's an American, but he's been living and working in London for I think about 10 years and he's married to someone and unfortunately his marriage falls apart and he goes back to New York to work. And he just can't settle and decides to take a leave of absence from his job. So yeah, he decides to travel up to New England to go skiing because he loves skiing and he's like, do you know what, I'm just going to ski all through the holidays and that'll be lovely, it'll take my mind off what's going, you know, all these things that were going on in his life. So he's driving up there and he gets into Massachusetts and I've just looked up just by chance the name of the place that he goes skiing and it's Charlemont and I thought, is that a real place? And it absolutely is. And then I thought, I'm going to look up the little town where he gets stranded because what happens is there's this huge snowstorm and he can't travel any further and he gets to a place called Shelburne Falls and I thought, I'm going to look up whether that is made up or real. It's totally real. It's a historic town in Massachusetts. So of course now I'm going to Google Earth it. I always love a Google Earth. So yeah, these towns are real places. I didn't even realise that the times that I've read this book. So yeah, he gets stranded in this town and he comes across this little bed and breakfast that isn't actually officially open because it's coming up for Christmas, but he thought, I'll try my luck, you know, I've got no other choice. And it's run by this lovely, quite elderly lady and she's got a really cute dog and she lets him stay there and they become friends and through talking, she tells him that she actually owns a chateau close by in some woodland. And because he's an architect, he's like, oh my goodness, I'd love to see it. And she's like, well, yeah, you know, I'll take you to see it. And then he ends up actually renting it. You know, he says to her, I would love to stay here. You know, can I rent it from you? And she's, she's umming and ahhing. She's not quite sure because it's a really special place for her. Long and short is she does rent it to him and he moves in there. And when he moves in, he kind of senses this presence of this woman who lived there and was the original person to live in the chateau in the sort of late 1700s, early 1800s. It was built for her by her, he does become her husband, but he's a French man, hence why it looks like a chateau. But what then happens in the story is that he actually, long story short, Charles, or Charlie is referred to as Charlie, discovers the lady's diaries of, you know, this woman who used to live in the house and she's called Sarah Ferguson. He finds her diaries in the house, they're kind of hidden in the attic, and he starts reading them. And at that point, the book then jumps back in time and starts telling you about Sarah's life and how she came about moving to America. It then tells her story, so it goes back in time and tells her story, and then it will jump forward, you know, when Charlie stops reading that bit of the diary, it'll then jump forward to what's going on in his life. And so it keeps going sort of this back and forth through time, and he learns all about her, and he then goes to like the historic society in the town and tries to find out about her. And ultimately, he actually sees her ghost in the house. It wasn't scary. I didn't find it scary when he saw her, because the thought of that might be a bit scary, might it? But it wasn't, anyway. But also, in Charlie's life, he meets this woman in this town where he's staying and befriends her, and she's got a young daughter who's mad on skiing, and a friendship develops. It's just a friendship, but then you can see that may well, you know, develop, and it just, you know, it literally travels the sort of time. I mean, how is that, a couple of 100 years? It is, isn't it? 17, 8, yeah, a couple of 100 years. And it's just fantastic. The story is just the way that the story goes with Sarah when it goes back in time. And obviously you know that she died a long time ago, yet you feel quite connected to her. And Charlie feels incredibly connected to her. It's not a time slip book, but it's telling the story from two different times and how those two stories then come together. And the setting of it is just beautiful. I would really recommend this one. It's really easy to read. It's really engaging. It's a gripping story. The Christmas theme is lovely. I know that we're now into the new year and you might not want to read something that's sort of set at Christmas, but it really doesn't dominate the story. It's mentioned within it, you know, Christmas meals are had, but then it just moves on quite quickly after that. It's not, it doesn't dwell, it's not a Christmas story at all. Grab yourself a copy if you haven't got one, download it on your Kindle, or, you know, if you want the actual copy, I'm sure you could get a really cheap second-hand copy as well, because this has been out so long. So yeah, that's The Ghost. I really love it. I hope you enjoy it if you decide to read it. And yeah, so now it's time to bring in our yarn. We need to rinse it, we need to dry it, and we need to get it wound up, ready for knitting. Okay, so here we are ready now to rinse our yarn. So I'm going to fill up my bowl with some warm water and my usual Eucalan lavender wool wash. So I'm going to start with my main colour. I've got no dye in the water at all. You can see it's completely clear and it looks lovely. So just dump that in. So just scoot off the water, and then I like to just give it a nice squidge. Don't ever wring your yarn though. There we go. And then we've just got the 2 rose gold minis, which looks lovely. Really pretty. And then I'm just going to set these in front of a fan to get them dried. Okay, so our yarn is now all dry and ready to be skeined up. So I mean, the rose gold colour is just so pretty. And you know, we're not using these in the cowl, but I'm thinking now about what I want to do with them. And I know that I can get a pair of fingerless mitts out of 40 grams of yarn, and that's what I've got here. So maybe I'll do some fingerless mitts with those. Or if you've dyed up a couple of minis as well, you can put them into your scrappy projects or do whatever you want with them. Or you could, because we're going to be dyeing up a couple of minis each time now. So in the end, you'd have 5 different colours of minis. You could save them all up to the end and knit yourself some scrappy socks. That's an exciting thought, isn't it? Oh, I might have to do that. So our beautiful rose gold minis, and then our main skein, which is just gorgeous. You know, you can see the peach is beautiful. I love the peach is my favourite, I think. And the blue and that golden tone. And then, as I said, you can't really see the grey, but it just adds a sort of mellowness to it. absolutely gorgeous. Really pleased with it, and I can't wait to see how it knits up. We're going to cake it up. So I've got my little setup here. So we're only going to be using a little bit in the cowl, you know. I haven't actually measured it, but what I'll do this time is, I mean, this is 100 grams or thereabouts. I find that usually a skein might be sort of 101, 102 grams. That's sort of typical. So I will weigh it after I've knit the next section, and then I'll be able to tell you how much yarn each section is taking. So let's see, is that winding off nicely? Yes, it is. I'm near the end, so I'm just slowing down, because I find that when I get a lot of yarn on the ball winder, it doesn't like it as much. Oh, there we go. That's okay, that was all right. So here we go. Oh, it does look nice. And I do have this is what happens, I always get this. So I just tuck them in and ignore it. So there we go. Oh, it looks so pretty. It kind of looks very spring-like, which is nice, isn't it? It's very subtle and pastel-y and just perfect for, you know, what it's representing. And I can't wait to see it knit up into the cowl. So that's what we need to do now. I need to get out my project bag. I will show you what it looked like after the last section, and then we'll get cracking with the ghost. Okay, we are all ready to start knitting our reading corner cowl. So when I left you last time, I was working on that first colour that we dyed up, and then there were none. So since then I have completed the next sort of contrast section. So it's going to be like a striped cowl. So as you can see, this is the and then there were none. And I've just realised, actually, I said about letting you know how much yarn I'd used. I realised I'd still got my skein here of the last colour, so I've weighed that and I've used just over 10 grams. So what I did after I completed that section, which is where we were the last time I was sat here, I then went on to do the Miss Havisham contrast stripe. So this just worked in exactly the same way. So what I did was I knit the first round, just plain knit, then round 2 was knit 1, purl 1, and then rounds 3 to 10, just plain knit. So that's how we're going to be working this cowl. So the coloured sections are going to be 20 rounds, and then the contrast sections are 10 rounds. So I've worked the 10 rounds there, as you can see, and I'm ready now to start working in this colour. You know, when I'm dyeing these yarns, I'm not really thinking about what it's going to look like following the next yarn, and the reason of that is I don't want it to restrict my sort of creative process, if you like, but also I am combating that urge to kind of coordinate by putting in the contrast stripes, because I find if you separate something with a neutral, you can then just go nuts with the colours and it all seems to work. It doesn't look too crazy because the neutral stripes are calming everything down. So that's what we're going to be doing, and I love how this last colourway knit up. It just kind of looks like the ocean, doesn't it? Really lovely. So yeah, we're ready now to start knitting the next colour. So I'm just 1 stitch away from the end of the round there so that my marker didn't fall off. And now we can slip that and add in the new colour. So I just leave a tail for weaving in, loop it over, and then just start knitting. I don't do anything fancy. I think I spoke about this last time, didn't I? I don't do anything fancy in terms of the ends. I just literally stop knitting with one colour and then start knitting with the next, and then weave them in as I showed you last time, and I find that that's much neater and you don't get any kind of bulk in your stitches. You know, using the sort of weaving as you go method, I think, creates a bit of bulk behind your stitches, and you can sometimes see the colour through as well. So I just weave it in. I find that it's much neater. So I've just got to knit this first round, and then, you know, I can do the next round, as I've said, will be knit 1, purl 1, and then from rounds 3 to 20, it's just plain knit. Oh, and I just hit some peach stitches there. Oh, that was lovely. You can see I'm totally obsessed with peach at the minute. I did actually recently dye myself up a golden peach coloured yarn to knit myself some socks with, so that was exciting. That was a random tangent about peach. Yeah, so first round, plain knit. Round 2, knit 1, purl 1. Rounds 3 to 20, plain knit. And then you can also go ahead then and work the contrast stripe following it with the Miss Havisham. So you would do the same thing as I've just described. So with the contrast round, you're doing round 1, plain knit, round 2, knit 1, purl 1, round 3 to 10, plain knit. So you can do that as well in preparation for the next colour. So I am now going to happily knit away here. I think it's going to be really pretty. I think it's going to be soft and delicate and beautiful and really reflective of that feeling in the book. You know, if you've read the book or if you want to go back and read it, you'll find that section really easily as you're reading it. You'll recognise it because the description of the colours in the chateau, you'll go, oh yeah, that's the bit that Kay was talking about. So I'm going to get on now and knit the Ghost colourway into my lovely cowl. So thank you very much for joining me again for this Yarny book club. I've really enjoyed dyeing it. I'm enjoying this whole process. I'm enjoying revisiting books, maybe looking at some new books and reading them and getting the inspiration and trialing the colourway and just coming up with these beautiful yarns to then knit into something that we'll be able to wear at the end of it. So I look forward to seeing you again in the next Yarny Book Club, and I really hope you enjoy dyeing up and knitting into your cowl if that's what you're doing. So I'll see you all back really soon.
What a gorgeous collection of yarns. Oh yes, and here is the reading corner cowl.
Yes.
With all the gorgeous, I mean, it's all knitted in.
It's knitted in.
Perfect.
I'm partway through the contrast stripe that follows it so that you can see a nice contrast. It's a subtle, this one's really subtle, but it's just lovely because that's what suited the theme. So you can see all of those flecks of the blue and the peach, and then you've got this sort of golden buttery yellow as well in the background. And it's just so lovely. And I think what I said on the video was that the great thing about putting contrast stripes in is that it doesn't really matter what goes on in the main colours, because the contrast stripe kind of softens everything, and I think just shows off. It's like a little, not a swatch is the wrong word, but it just shows off all of the colours really well. But I just wanted to show you the minis again because they just came out so pretty. I just love the sort of rosy gold with the minis. Isn't it gorgeous? I was so pleased with that because you saw the process that it went through, and it didn't look very promising at all. But then, you know, something miraculous happened when I put on that peach colour, and it's just gorgeous. I just absolutely love it. So I've got some lovely minis to play around with there. Lovely. And of course, here's the beautiful book it was inspired by. So I would, like as I said in the video, you know, I would really recommend you read this if you fancy giving it a go. I think you will really enjoy it. It's a great story.
Cool. all. It's the end of another amazing Yarny book club.
Yes.
What a wonderful series. It's back later on this year. Next time, though, it's time for this year's epic historical adventure series to begin.
How exciting.
England, a castle nation. Over 10 episodes. We will tell the story of the arrival of the castle, why it's important, how do castles link to us today? How did so many of the things which exist in our houses today come from castles? But also we'll be telling the story of England from the time of the Tudors right the way through to the Civil War and the foundation of a republic. And along the way we'll also be picking up the story of the foundation of a brand new religion, which we saw the sort of first sprouts of at the end of last year's rise and fall of the monasteries. It's an absolutely fascinating period of English history, and we're going to be visiting some totally stunning, completely different types of destinations as we explore 5 of the most spectacular castles. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and that starts next time. Right now, though, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Did you hear our last radio show?
Did you?
We were talking about shared interests.
Oh, yes.
It was very fun. That's available
fun.
for you to listen to now.
Yeah.
Valentine, as we've said, is now completely underway.
It is.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
For the next 2 weeks, everything's going to be all Valentine
We're
focused.
all loved up.
Yes.
Yes.
Always.
Always.
Yarn, books, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And folks, that pretty much is it. What a wonderful
That was a
show.
quick Endy Bits.
Yes, I
wasn't
know,
it?
I know. Well, it's been a bumper show.
Jam-packed full of everything else.
I know.
That's fun.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So, folks, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
And we will see you in 2 weeks
We will.
for the Baker Bears video show featuring England, a castle nation.
Exciting. See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl you'll want to wear. So sit yourself right down